friends, welcome back to this lecture. We were studying about what are the different books of accounts that needs to be maintained under GST Act. So, as per GST Act, true and correct account of following items are to be maintained in the principal place of business. 1. Production or manufacture of goods. Account of production or manufacture of goods. Inward and outward supply of both goods or services or separately. Stock of goods. ITC availed. Output tax payable and paid, and other particulars as may be prescribed. The Commissioner may notify a class of taxable person to maintain additional accounts or documents for such purpose as may be specified therein. Where the Commissioner considers that any class of taxable person is not in a position to keep and maintain accounts, in accordance with the provision in the section, he may, for the reason to be recorded in writing, permit such class of taxable person to maintain accounts in such manner as may be prescribed. So this part is actually about making it a little bit easier for the taxpayers, that if in a given sort of arrangement, or if in case of any business where these the manner or the type of books cannot be maintained, then there is some sort of flexibility present at the disposal of Commissioner of that state to or center to little bit to modify the accounts, and also the manner in which such accounts are to be maintained. And of course, that the reason for that should be recorded in writing, that why Commissioner is making it why Commissioner is allowing it in a different manner. Now there are certain other additional records that needs to be maintained by a specified person, for specified person. So everyone is not required to maintain such additional records. What are that? First one is registered person. So if in case of registered person, what are the different additional records that needs to be maintained? And what if in case of an agent? Now we know who is an agent, who is doing selling and buying on the behalf of principal. That person is agent. So what kind of accounts that agent has to maintain? Then there is manufacturer, there is service provider, works contract, forwarding, clearing agents. Of course, as we studied at the introduction only, that what the types of account or the additional records that owner or operator of warehouse or godown and transporter needs to maintain. And therefore then we will come into detail that how that accounts, what is actually the manner in which those accounts or books should be maintained. So first, registered person. So registered person is required to maintain a true and correct account. True and correct account of what? Of goods and services imported. The goods and services which are imported or exported, supplies attracting payment of tax on RCM, that is reverse charge, along with relevant documents including invoice, bill of supply, delivery challan, credit note, debit note, receipt vouchers, payment voucher, refund vouchers. So what are the items that have been exported and imported? These are the additional documents, I tell you again, because what are the actually the amount the goods and services delivered or manufactured, then outward inward supply, these things which every registered person has to maintain as a necessary documents under GST. Other than that, there are certain other additional records also which needs to be maintained. Now there could be a case where any goods or services have not been imported or exported. In this situation it's okay, but because this is not, it's the the taxpayer's primary business, because the taxpayer is not involved in export and import. But if in case he is or she is, then that needs to be, these are the additional records that needs to be maintained. Now those supplies that attract payment on reverse charge, so for those supplies, relevant documents, which includes invoices, bill of supply, challans, delivery challans, credit notes, debit notes, etc., all of those related or relevant documents needs to be maintained. Now separate account of advances received, paid, and adjustment made. What does this mean? So suppose I receive some advance, okay, for delivery of certain goods, for sale of certain goods. Now that goods I have not yet, the movement or the actual transaction has not taken place, but I have received certain advance, and for that I will ensure that that transaction, that sale gets completed. Now that advance is not yet, the taxable event has not happened. Why? Because advance के case में time of supply is not when the, sorry, goods के case में time of supply is not when the advance is received, but the other different conditions. However, in case of service, if advance is paid, GST liability arises on the advance amount, right? So in case of goods it does not arise. Still a separate account has to be maintained where it will record that what are the different advances, what advance has been received so far, how much advance has been paid, and what adjustments has been made. So if in case the department asks a taxpayer that, okay, you have received advance, you have to give me a record of that, and the person will say, the taxable person will say, I don't have any record, but yes, I have received advance. So that is not possible. Why? That is a violation of GSTI, because this is additional records that needs to be maintained. Now particulars of name, complete address of supplier from whom he has received the goods or services chargeable to tax under the act. So when you receive, when there is an inward supply, the name and complete address must be mentioned. Name and complete address, remember, and name and complete address of person to whom he has supplied. So in case of inward supply in case of a supplier, and in case of outward supply, of name and complete address of those who has received those supply. Okay, now particulars of the complete address of the premises where goods are stored by him. What is the complete address where the stock is kept? Because we know stock summary has to be maintained, so that particulars of the complete address also needs to be maintained, including goods stored during transit, along with particulars of the stock stored therein. So suppose if a department goes to a business place and he searches for, inspection is there, and search what, that okay, in your business place this is the actual stock. Now what the taxpayer or the owner of that business place needs to tell, that this is not the only stock, I have some items, goods also, which is stored during transit. So this is also a stock, right? So that also needs to be maintained. The particulars of that also needs to be maintained. However, if any taxable goods are found to be stored at any place other than those so declared without the cover of any valid documents, the proper officer shall determine the tax payable on such goods as if such goods have been supplied by the registered person. This is a very interesting line. If any taxable goods are found to be stored at any place other than those so declared without the cover of any valid documents, then proper officer shall determine the amount of tax payable on such goods as if the goods have been supplied by the registered person. What does this mean? This is very important part to understand, and it is, give me a minute. Yes, see, What does this mean? For example, I don't, I'm not disclosing that I have a godown at some say Chandni Chowk. Okay, I'm doing business from Mumbai. Now I have a godown in Chandni. Or for example, I'm doing business on Karol Bagh and I have a stock. I have stock in a godown in Chandni Chowk. I am not disclosing it to the department on the common portal, nor I have maintained any record of that on the principal place of business. Now, during inspection, if a proper officer comes to know that there is some sort of, you know, uh, some stock is there, which is what, which is some stock is there which has not been declared without the cover of any valid document, then the proper officer can imply or can determine that he or she will treat that stock in that place present in Chandni Chowk as a stock which has already been sold. So tax liability on complete stock would be determined, including the value addition. So for example, 100 rupees biscuit is there, 500 rupees kg, 100 rupees per packet biscuit is there. Now, so taxable value is 500. No, 500 was its inward value, inward supply value. It was what the retailer bought from the wholesaler. Now, when he will sell it in the market, he will sell at 110. So 550 is the taxable value, and on that 12% or 5% now biscuit. So tax would be determined on that. So if I'm stressing this again, it's a very important point that if any taxable goods are found to be stored at any place other than those so declared without the cover of any valid documents, then the proper officer shall determine the amount of tax payable on such goods as if such goods have been supplied by the registered person. So it is more like these are undocumented goods. So undocumented goods means what? You have purchased it, you have purchased it from the retailer, from the wholesaler, you have purchased it, but you have evaded tax liability, no invoice is available, you have not stored it here so that it will never come in, you have not shown in your stock register as well. Okay, so in that case what will happen? It is undocumented. Again, a supplier is required to maintain following records relating to stock of goods and tax details. However, a supplier who has opted for composition scheme is not required to maintain such document. Composition scheme is not required. However, a supplier is required to maintain record. Supplier has to maintain what? Record of relating to stock of goods and tax details. What does that mean? What is stock of goods? Account of stock in respect of goods received and supplied by him. So stock is not only what has been left over by the is finally remaining with the taxpayer, but it also includes that what are the goods which has been supplied by him, right? And such account shall contain particular of opening stock, balance, receipt, supply goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, or disposed, or by way of disposed of by way of gift or free sample. Everything needs to be mentioned, and balance of stocks including raw materials, finished goods, scrap, and wastage thereof. Okay, what are the details of tax account? Containing the details of tax payable, including RCM. Of course, remember RCM is always tax payable, तो tax payable कभी भी define करेंगे तो उसमें reverse charge के अंदर tax payable will also be included. Tax collected, then tax paid, input tax credit, claimed, together with a register of tax invoice, credit note, debit note, delivery challan issued or received during any tax period. So these are the additional documents that needs to be maintained by whom? A registered person. Coming to the next point, that what are the additional documents that needs to be maintained by agent? Every agent shall maintain account depicting particular of authorization received by him from each principal to receive or supply So agent का मतलब is what? That agent will act on behalf of principal, whether it's supply, whether it's sale, or whether it's receiving, right? So of goods or services. So that authorization must be there, that on for each receipt from each principal. Particulars including value and quantity. So what are the particulars for the goods and services received on behalf of every principal, supplied on behalf of every principal, of course both. Then what? Give me a minute. Okay. Then accounts furnished to every, what is the account furnished to every principal, and tax paid on receipt or supply of goods effected on behalf of. So if he is also discharging tax liability on behalf of principal, then that record also needs to be maintained. In case of manufacture, no, don't go through it, just think about it. What are the documents that, or what are the records that needs to be maintained by manufacturer? So manufacturer is actually what he's producing. It's not a business, normal, trading. It's a yeah, uh, it's production. So he or she needs to have what are the monthly productions, how much the manufacturer is producing. So monthly production account, what will it will show? The amount, the quantity, or the items that has been produced. Also the raw materials or the inputs that were used. And including the waste and products thereof. Of course something will go waste also, so nothing has to be left. All the all the records should be simultaneously concurrent. So if you go by one, you arrive at same by going through two also, the second one also. So they all have to be in sync with each other. Service provider, what a service provider needs to have maintained, of course, about the services which has been delivered. So details of goods and of course, and what are the inputs that have been used. It could be goods and it could be provision of service which were used in provision of service, and detail of input services utilized. So it's basically the same thing, that whatever your business model is, whatever your business item is, product is, irrespective of that, whatever you have to maintain those accounts and books and have in that manner, so that one could assess it, that yes, what sort of business, what are the inward supply, what are the purchases you are doing, what are the sale you are doing, and in that way, through, so that if you are providing a service, you are just maintaining what services are. Now you are using goods also for that, you are using services also that. So if you are doing a manufacturing work, then you are also using some sort of services, raw materials. For example, electricity is a duty, forget it. For example, you are using security services. Now that is also service which you are using for a manufacturing purpose, so that also needs to be documented. Now coming to works contract. Works contract is what? It's a service. So what does they have to? They have to keep separate account of for works contract, showing name and address of the person on whose behalf work contracted is executed. What does this mean? It's done on the behalf of someone. Then, for example, when a government opens up a tender, issues a tender to someone, then that works contract service is what? It's done on behalf of the entity who has issued a tender. So name and address of that person needs to be there. Description, value and quantity of goods and or services received for execution of that. Then value and quantity of goods and services utilized in execution. What were received, what was utilized, details of payment received. This is must. This is something which must be there, which you will come through a lot. What is the payment which you have received, because that payment only tax liability will arise. And name and address of supplier from whom he received goods and service. Now, custodian, clearing and forwarding. And what does a forwarding agent do? Receive from someone and forwards it to someone else. Now, recipient on behalf of any way, goods handled by him or behalf of such registered person. What were the goods that was handled on behalf of the registered person? Warehouse and transporter. Irrespective of whether warehouse godown owner is registered or transporter is registered or not, maintain the record of consignor, consignee and other relevant details. Warehouse, if I own a warehouse, I am not registered, my threshold warehouse is not goods or service, so my threshold is not more than 20, my turnover is not more than 20 lakhs per annum. Still I have to maintain the record of consignor, consignee, and because warehouse में the goods which are kept in warehouse or godown, they are not owned by someone, they are for what, they are in transit, they are generally they are generally for what, for selling it to someone or for keeping them for in a mortgage. Enrollment, if not already registered in GST, if such person are not already registered, then they shall obtain a unique enrollment number by applying electronically at the GST common portal. The person enrolled shall be deemed to be enrolled in the state or union territory. Such person may also amend the details furnished in prescribed form. Such person, once obtained unique enrollment number, shall not be eligible to use any of the GSTIN. Now, transporter. Any person engaged in the business of transporting goods shall maintain record of goods transported, delivered, goods stored in transit by him along with GST of registered consignor, consignee for each of his branches. These things we have already studied. Now the next topic is, okay, let me tell you again what the transporter needs to maintain. Record of goods transported, delivered and goods stored in transit by him along with GSTIN of registered consignor and consignee for each of his branches. Owner operator. So if you own and operate, if there is a godown owner, the goods should be stored in such a way that can be identified item wise and owner wise. What does this mean? See, if I own a godown, then it need not be a godown exclusively for a party ABC. There could be 10 parties. For example, Flipkart is offering a warehouse services wherein different sellers, they come and store their goods there, right? So it's a warehouse. Now Flipkart is owning it. Now what happens is that Flipkart has to ensure that in that warehouse that item should be stored, the goods should be stored in such a way that they are distinguished from they can be distinguished between that the goods stored there in the warehouse can be distinguished or identified item wise as well as owner wise. Okay, now coming to yes, in case of warehouse and godown, what are the documents that needs to be maintained is goods remaining in the warehouse, including the particular relating to dispatch, movement, receipt, and disposal of such goods. So this was all. What are the different additional documents that needs to be maintained by specified person? We have seen registered person, then we have seen agent, what different documents that agent needs to maintain, then what documents manufacturer has to maintain. Similarly, in case of service provider, then the person executing works contract, and that we have seen that details of payment received is necessary because GST liability will be fixed based on the payment received. Then what different documents that custodian or clearing and forwarding agent need to maintain. Then what are the different specified documents that the owner and operator of a warehouse, godown, and transporter have to maintain, irrespective of whether they are registered or not registered. In the next lecture, we will study about how the accounts and records will be maintained, and actually talks about what is the manner of maintaining the accounts and record. So we will look into it in detail in the next lecture, and see, we are at page number 14 and we have to go till 45. Then we will also see in the next lecture you will also see for how much period these accounts needs to be maintained. Then from from the next lecture we will start with e-waybill. So we will look into what e-waybill is, what is the e-waybill procedure, how it works, who will issue e-waybill, etc. And there are so many details. We will also look into certain case studies to understand in a better way. Okay, and since the PDF is updated till 30th of April 2025, so this PDF is fairly new one. So rest assured you are covered with all the different circulars, the recent one also, and it would be explained in a very lucid manner. You won't feel any problem with that. So since we are going through e-waybill, so we'll read about the transportation sector as a whole. So what are different what are the different dimensions of a transportation sector, especially in GST. So there would be basically, I think, one lecture more on accounts. Then we will in that lecture we will wrap up the books of account and how it will be maintained, what accounts are needs to maintain, and how it will maintain. And then we will probably there will be 2 more lectures on e-waybill, and then we will wrap it up. Thank you for the lecture. Keep watching.